Hello, guys. Good evening. Come on in, come on in. So, here's what we're talking about tonight. Earlier today, we published a story, one that I wrote, about a Charlotte school reporting a 6-year-old for sex crimes to not only the police, they actually called Child Protective Services. This is so crazy, so out of control. Quite naturally, the father, who is a very strong advocate for his child, wants to know what the hell's going on. He wants answers. He wants answers. So I'm bringing him on tonight to discuss what has gone on with his child, because what has gone on with his child could happen to anybody's child, anyone's child. And so he is brave enough to come on and to tell his story and to explain to you what the processes may or may not be if this happens to you in your school, God forbid. And I'm bringing on right now Greg Pierce. Hello, Greg.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing great. I feel like I'm doing better than you are at this point.
That could be an understatement.
Yeah, most certainly. So, just gave an overview of what happened. Let's go back to, what was it, 17 days ago, um, when you had an initial issue, or actually, let's go before that. When you transferred into this school, this is Torrance Creek in Huntersville, North Carolina. Um, as I understand, and I saw the doctor's note, you several times requested special accommodations for your son. Tell us about that.
Well, that is correct. He transferred in there kindergarten, and I informed them that he had ADHD and that he could need special requirements, and to please take into consideration that um, he has this diagnosis when choosing his teacher and doing his placement and putting him with somebody that's structured and hands-on. And they said, okay, no problem. They never asked me for any documentation, never mentioned anything else. Um, in my opinion, the teacher he had in kindergarten was very good. Um, I asked them a second time, coming around when he started first grade, again, please remember that my son has ADHD. Consider this when you're doing his placement with his teacher. And they said, okay, no problem. But it turned out to be a complete mismatch. Um, but going back to March 18th, 2021, I actually did give them documentation just to have on file from his doctor stating that he has a diagnosis of ADHD and does require special needs in the classroom to enhance his learning and success. And I was never aware of anything beyond having to do anything beyond that. And now I'm just finding out that he was denied some certain things that he should have been offered, at least, at the very least, to help him succeed in school and be placed properly. And that was never offered to him.
So, what the law states is that when a parent requests accommodations, when a parent provides a note, which in your case you did, the note that came from your doctor said, this child has ADHD. You already don't mind me sharing this because we talked about this before, that he is on medication for that. Not unlike thousands of kids right in the school district right now, and that special modifications should be made. That's what you asked. So the school, by law, within 90 days should provide you with an evaluation, and you would have likely had something called a 504 plan. So a 504 plan is for children who can still be in the general population of schools, but would need some slight modification. For instance, quieter areas for testing, right? That's a really important thing. Another thing would be maybe your son, and in fact, I'm pretty sure your son wouldn't be allowed to use technology, right? Or bring their technology in from home. So those sort of things happen. They happen all the time. Schools do this all the time. So now bring us back to about 17 days ago, I think. Your son this year has not had any modifications, as he should have had by law. And tell us what happened from the perspective of, and this is unique because your son gives the same story as the principal and the teacher, right? I mean, I think they're all on the same page with what happened. Minus the naughty word, if there is one, but what actually happened with your son in the first incident?
The first incident, he had, well, they had technology day where they were told they could bring in their tablets or their favorite electronic devices. And he brought his in and apparently had a video on there that he made several months prior, at home, where he was sitting on the toilet going to the bathroom talking to himself. And he took the tablet and panned down towards the toilet to show that. And it caught a glimpse of his privates on the camera. And then he scanned back or panned back up to his face, and that was it. And the next thing I know, I'm getting called to come pick him up.
So, as I understand, I read the reports. He apparently was looking at it at his own desk privately, having a laugh like boys do, and I guess a student or two walked past him, saw this, and told the teacher.
Yes, that was my understanding, that he was watching the video. Didn't make anybody see it, nothing like that. He was watching it, laughing. Some students took attention to it, kind of looked over his shoulder, saw the video. A student told the teacher about it, and the teacher brought it to the principal's attention, I believe is how that worked out. And then that's when I received the call to come pick him up. They weren't specific on what happened at the time. I didn't really know what was going on when I picked him up until I got there.
About how long had your son been questioned before you got there? How long did they wait to call you?
I'm not sure how long they waited to call me, honestly. On this first incident, they called my ex-wife, and she had called me to come get him, and they didn't tell her really what it was about, just said something about his tablet, I think. And I know I had her meet me there. She had to come from Charlotte, so it was at least, I would say, about an hour or more before I got there once we got the call. But from when the incident happened itself, if I recall correctly, I think maybe 30 minutes or so since the incident happened until the time they called me. So about an hour and a half he had been there without myself or my ex-wife being there.
Okay, so walk us through how they handled that. You were asked to go to pick your son up to get him out of school. He had to leave right away. And you were told what?
I was told that it was not a big deal. That first of all, they told me what had happened, and it was a little odd to hear something like that. But they said, it's not a big deal. We're just going to look to probably maybe change his class if that's okay with you. But we're going to ask you to keep him home Monday and come in Monday after school to have a conversation with us to see what the plan is moving forward. And then he can come back to school Tuesday with a teacher change, but don't tell him until we talk to you that we're going to change his class. We don't want him to know about that yet. And I don't know why they asked me to do that, but they asked me not to tell him. And I was informed that they had already talked to the students of the parents that saw the video. And the parents had all kind of laughed about it. That was, I think, the principal's exact words. They all kind of laughed because they have boys at home and they understand, boys do dumb things and think it's funny. And, they knew that my son did something funny. And that was his interpretation of showing, or his friend seeing the video. But they said to bring him back Tuesday. And they had mentioned nothing about anything sexually related at the time, although they actually said, I don't think Mr. Bissinger, who was the principal there at Torrance Creek, said, I don't think I'm going to have to report this. I don't think it's severe enough. It doesn't fit based on the content of the video, although inappropriate, which I agreed. Um, I don't think it fits under Title IX, but I'm going to have to do some further research, but I really don't think it's going to fit to report it. And then he asked me to come in Monday, and that's when I came in Monday, the following Monday, to meet with him, with my ex-wife.
Okay. So what had happened then at this point, I want everybody to understand, he was being placed on a 1-day suspension, and having his classes changed. So those are 2 punishments already. And so when we look at the menu of punishments in the Charlotte-Mecklenburg school system manual, that's probably about the maximum that he could have received. Now, let me just give a little history. Charlotte-Mecklenburg school system has had a long-standing history of not reporting to the police, not reporting to the Title IX office. Title IX office is like sexual assault, sex abuse, things like that. Not reporting many incidents of actual sexual assault and rapes in the bathroom. In fact, one school even suspended a girl for complaining about being raped in the bathroom and didn't report, as I understand, the actual offender to the police. And now we're talking about a 6-year-old. This is the first offense, because what you're going to tell us, I mean, this is the offense that this was actually dismissed and the cops were called. This is not a legitimate Title IX offense, nor is it a legitimate criminal offense. So tell us, you came back in on Monday or Tuesday. You operated in good faith. You kept him home, right? You did what you're supposed to do. You come in. What happens?
Well, I was expecting a simple resolution, that being just his class change, which I actually wanted to happen anyways, which I actually asked for earlier in the year. And I was asked to provide documentation of his ADHD, and I informed the dean of students there that it was already on file. They already had it. And she said, okay, well, I will get a meeting scheduled with Mr. Bissinger and get back in touch with you, and we'll talk about a potential class change if that's what you want. And that never happened. I never heard anything. So I went in really with the only expectation to have his class change. And as Mr. Bissinger told me, that was probably going to be the end of it. He didn't think that he was going to have to report it. And at this time, I still don't know what reporting means. I don't know anything about Title IX. So I go into this meeting with my ex-wife, and it was the dean of students. Mr. Bissinger was not present for most of the meeting. He came in for about the last 5 or 10 minutes. But it was made clear by both of them, the dean of students and Mr. Bissinger, that they knew that my son had no intent to do what he did. And there was nothing malicious behind it, that it was just something silly or funny, what I think was their wording that they used, that it was just a 6-year-old boy making, doing something that was funny, and his friends happened to see it. Then Mr. Bissinger said, unfortunately, I do have to report it. And that's when I started asking questions. I said, what does that mean? And they downplayed it again and said, it's not a big deal. It's just, we have to report it to our Title IX office. And I asked what that meant. And he said, no, it's just due to the nature of the content of the video. We have to report it, but it's nothing that's going to go on record. It's nothing that's going to follow him or affect him academically or through the years. So, don't worry about it. This is going to be a good thing. We're trying to be supportive of him. And I kind of left things at that. And we walked out of there thinking, he's getting a class change. And that's pretty much it. He had already stayed home for a day. And then the documents, which had all the writing in it with the write-up for Title IX, came home on Tuesday, which told a much different story.
Yeah, I saw that. That was shocking. So, to your face, they were, fine, everything's great, etc. you sounds like you even felt like, wow, okay, well, that's, all's well that ends well. Getting the class change that I wanted. My son will probably be getting the special needs treatment that he needs, right, with a different class. And then the next day, boom. What did that document say?
Um, it came along with, um, it was allegations under Title IX, and it was very hard to read, although I was told by Sharon Taguchi that Hudson would be coming home with some documents, or my son would be coming home with some documents that day, and that that the documents would explain exactly what was going on. And she said also, by law, I have to send you the Title IX documents, but don't pay any attention to those. If I were you, I wouldn't even read them. It's just going to be more confusing. It sounds way worse than it is. And I look at the documents that they wanted me to sign, which ultimately they said I didn't have to sign, but at first they wanted them signed. So I looked at them, and the first page says on Title IX this, there's allegations of sexual harassment. Then the next page says misconduct. Then the next page says harassing again. The next page says misconduct. So I called her and said, I'm not signing these. I was never told that this had anything to do with sexual harassment or anything to do with misconduct or anything sexual related. Um, this whole reporting thing was not even made clear to me at all what it meant. So I really had no idea. The documents themselves were a shock and
Right.
disturbing, to say the least.
Right. And I think, anyone would be, right? You're told one thing, it's a big deal. You don't even have to sign these documents. We're just doing it. Don't even read it. Thank God you didn't listen to them. Thank God you did not listen to them, because now, yeah, it turns into something way, way worse. And so, so this drags on for a little while. And at what point did you, because there was a second incident, right? What happened between the first incident and the second incident where they seem to have gotten back up on their hind legs?
Well, the documents clearly read the sexual harassment and misconduct, and for about 2 days, I believe, we were going back and forth, and I was arguing with them like I'm not okay with this, because as I understand this, as I'm consulting with lawyers and um, some other people about child's rights and whatnot, and how Title IX works, they're telling me that this does in fact get reported. It does in fact stick to his record. It will follow him. They do in fact use this to look at when they place children, to get a mixture of good kids and bad kids in the classroom. Um, so then that changed to, from sexual harassment to misconduct. I get an email. It was from Sharon Taguchi, the assistant principal, saying it kind of had somewhat of a threatening tone to it. It was said something along the lines of, basically, we're going easy on him with the misconduct, um, but we could get him for sexual harassment, showing, actually, I wrote it down, it was showing pornographic material and misuse of technology. Um, Ultimately, when it came down to it, towards the end of the week, the allegations had changed once I expressed my concern for that. But I was told specifically that none of this showing pornographic material, sexual harassment would appear in what they call the final outcome statement. I think it's what it's called, which is the only document that gets filed. And that was not the case at all. It ended up They ended up finding him in violation of the student code of conduct for misuse of technology, um, which was the determining factor. But they also put in there that he was accused, or there are allegations made against him of sexual harassment and showing, and not just showing pornographic material, but distribution of pornographic material.
So
Um,
let's put a pin right in that, because I'm going to show you something and I want to get your reaction. Actually, hold on a second. Let me share this with you. We have been fighting for at least 8 months now. We've been fighting to get what we think is pornographic material out of the schools. Actually, I can't show you that, or else I'm going to be probably shut down. I can't actually show you that one because it is pornographic. So let me show you the other one. And so do they have their, did they say something about their own definition? They've got their own definition of pornographic and their own policy. Explain to me what that means.
That was just something that I really learned today.
Because this is what's in libraries.
Oh my
Just
God.
to show you, that's what's in libraries. And they don't consider this to be pornographic. And that's just what I can show you. Okay. So
I'm good.
right. Okay. So we're clear. So they're not removing that because they're showing this, Greg, to kids who are 12 and 13, and they have books that describe and glorifies fathers sleeping with their own daughters. They're doing this in middle school to kids that can understand. All right. So they're not holding themselves accountable at all. So they're doing that. And then they're trying to talk about pornography. This is insane. I knew you'd be shocked. I told you I was going to shock you. And yeah.
I didn't want to see that.
Right. Well, but it just goes to the credibility of this whole situation and this whole system. They're telling you to even broach the idea after they had, to your point, minimize the whole thing. Bring it out as distributing porn is ridiculous.
Yeah. This whole thing went from, it started off as sexual harassment. And then when I got the final outcome statement, actually Sharon Taguchi called me. It was, I want to say May 4th or May 5th. Looks like May 4th. And she said it was May 5th. She sent me the final outcome statement. And when I talked to her before that, she said the final outcome statement was going to be very simple. That was going to be the only document filed. It was only going to read something like there was allegations made under Title IX, and that they investigated it, and that it was not found to be he was not found to be a violation of Title IX, but more so the Student Code of Conduct for misuse of technology. And when I get the final outcome statement, it's got sexual harassment, distribution of child pornography, showing and distribution of child pornography. And that's when I called Mr. Bissinger and the principal and expressed my concerns with that. And he had no idea what was even in the documents that were going to be reported and filed against my son. He had to have the assistant principal, Sharon Taguchi, pull him up for him and call me back. And he had assured me that it was a standard template that they use, that CMS uses, that can't be changed. And that if he had to guess, that they just had to select from a drop-down menu what the allegations were initially, and that distribution of child pornography came automatically with the sexual harassment allegation. And I said, there's no way. He doesn't even have access to internet or email on his tab. How is he distributing child pornography?
So Greg, so we know that is a lie right there, because I just want to bring this current. So the principal, this is Bissinger, Jason Bissinger. So this guy is saying, hey, it's just a group thing, like a garbage can term, sex harassment, pornography. It could be any of that, except for this. The police report that was just filed, actually, he accused your son of filming and making a porno movie.
Yes, that is correct. And I just found that out today. And this was specifically after he told me several times that this was the end of it. And he got the document changed to remove all the allegations and just read misuse of technology. And then we're sitting there in a meeting with him talking, and I recorded it. And he's very clear and says, this will be the end of it. There's nothing further that's going to happen. no more disciplinary action, no more, there's no legal action to be concerned about. And he ends up, after he finds out that um, I'm potentially filing a lawsuit against him for several things, that this appears to be what I would consider him retaliating against my son or against me, and calls the police and says the allegations specifically state that school administration advised the student made a pornographic video and showed it to other students. So how a student makes a pornographic video is beyond me. I have no idea.
Right.
That was the police report, and the police officer that contacted me was even confused, and in her own words said, maybe they need to be re-educated on this, but I don't see where what your son did. I have the description of the video that was seen by a couple other students, and it does not fit at all under anything to meet an allegation of anything pornographic related. To be related to that or considered that, it has to be, first of all, sexual in nature, and his video was not at all sexual in nature.
So you brought up a couple of different lawsuits, and I believe that a lawyer would find that your son has not had his civil rights certainly respected, but maybe even there's some violations. Number one, asking for repeatedly and with a doctor's notes for special allowances in class is a civil rights violation. And it's not just me saying it, it's the DPI website saying it, it's the CMS website saying it, it's the federal website saying it. So that's number one, because who knows, this may not have happened if not for that. Number two, so there's a second event. So when you came in and said, and by the way, this is a very big deal, not getting an evaluation for that 504. So you came in and you said a couple of these things, et cetera, but there was a second report. And tell us very quickly what happened there and what we discovered with this Go Noodle video, this whole thing, and about what you got on tape from this principal. This is outrageous.
Well, the day after I spoke with him, and he said he would speak with the Title IX officer or director to see if he could remove the allegations for that first incident. And I got a phone call the following day, which I believe was May 5th or 6th. It was a Friday. And he said, unfortunately, I'm not calling you about what we discussed yesterday. I'm calling you because your son was involved in another incident. And this was just after I talked to him yesterday and said, I want those allegations removed because they don't fit. You know it. I know it. I've consulted with lawyers. The sexual harassment doesn't fit. The distribution of pornography certainly doesn't fit. That's not even worth going into. Or I'm gonna have to do what I have to do and file a lawsuit to get this taken care of. So the document gets changed. I walk in, they hand me a stack of paperwork, the dean of students does, and to come pick up my son. That's what the call was about. He said, you need to come pick up your son. I said, okay, what happened? They were watching a Go Noodle video, the whole class, the teacher, in a circle watching the video. He said, where they're moving around on the floor and they were on the ground. And apparently, supposedly, he had grabbed another student's hand and placed it on his privates. And then he took his own hand and placed it on the other kid's privates. And come to find out that this Go Noodle video, the allegations weren't even true. They're up, standing, dancing around. I don't know why he said that he got up and walked over to another student and did that in a room full of students and a teacher, how there was no other witness at all. It was just the one student who said something.
Let me interject so that we don't forget. This time your son was questioned for 1 hour, at least 1 hour. You estimated 1 hour and 20 minutes before they called you. So that right there, I believe that Title IX says that, both parties have to be protected and that parents should be called right away before the questioning and be there with the child, which makes perfect sense.
Correct.
Was it an hour or was it even longer?
It was about an hour and a half um, before I was actually there. I'd say probably at least an hour and 15 to 20 minutes that he was in there before I even got the call. I don't live far away from there, so I got there. Um, and like I said, they handed me a stack of paperwork and with these allegations that he did this and were trying to escort us out the door. And I'm referring to my ex-wife and myself. Um, and I said, stop, hold on a minute. I want to know what happened. I have no idea what happened here other than what I was told on the phone, which was they were doing a golden doodle video and supposedly he got up off the floor and walked over to another student and did this. And I want to hear my son's side of the story. And right there in front of my ex-wife and in front of the dean of students, I asked my son what happened. And he said, they kept talking to me about privates. They kept saying privates. And I kept saying privates area. My response was privates area. And I said, okay, well, tell me what happened though. And he said, well, my friend in class, we were rubbing each other's bellies, and he demonstrated by putting his hand on his stomach above the waistline and said we were rubbing each other's bellies because we thought it was funny. And I got to the principal's office and they kept talking about privates. And I kept repeating privates area. And then that's when I told the dean of students, I said, excuse me, I said, Hudson, tell her what you just told me. And he repeated that again in front of my ex-wife and in front of her, made the same motion, did rub his stomach and said, we were rubbing our bellies. The principal kept saying that I touched his privates, but I kept saying privates area. And I asked her, is this what he told you? She said, well, that's not what you told me. And my son said, yes, that is what I told you. I said privates area. And then again, he rubbed his stomach and she basically walked off and said, you're going to have to take this up with Mr. Bissinger. So we waited almost 3 hours for him to come out. And I had very little idea still what was going on. And I had only found out at that time that he had changed the documents that supposedly couldn't be changed from the first incident to remove all the other allegations and just put misuse of conduct or misuse of technology under student code of conduct. But I'm reading the allegations and it's saying that Hudson got up and walked to another student in class while doing a Goldino video, and that Hudson grabbed his hand and made him touch his privates, and he took his own hand and touched the other person's privates.
But the recording you got from this principal, tell us about that, because that is it. That's it right there.
Well, yeah, the whole conversation was recorded, and he stated in the beginning of the conversation, I asked him, I said, I would like to hear what happened in your own words. I have no idea what's going on. Please tell me. And he said, I questioned the students, and Hudson supposedly, in his words, said that he admitted to touching the other kid's privates, and that the other kid touched his privates. The other kid said supposedly that Hudson put his hand on his privates and then made him put his hand on his privates. And he said they had the exact same story. It matched up. And I said, okay, so we're just going with what the other student says, and that's it. Case closed. He's guilty. And he said, well, yeah, pretty much. And my ex-wife asked, well, what's the next step? What's next in the process? And he said, nothing. We talked to the other boys' parents, and they were understanding, and they didn't want to see any further trouble come to Hudson or any legal action. We told them that we were doing a one-day in-school suspension. They really didn't even want to see that happen. They didn't want him to be in trouble because they understand they're boys, they do stupid things, which I guess we'll get to that later, but that turned out not to be the case. That was a lie. But as we get down the road and Mr. Bissinger recaps what happened, I said, okay, so what exactly was said by my son? And he said, well, I talked to the other student first, and he said that Hudson touched his privates. And when I asked Hudson what happened, he said that he touched his privates area. So that was about 11 minutes into the conversation. And about 2 minutes later, he repeated that same statement again, using my son's own words. The privates area, not the privates. And myself and my ex-wife asked him, at any point did you guys show him, or did you ask him to show you what he meant by privates area? And he said, no, I didn't have to, because he just said he touched them in the privates and their stories matched. But he's here not once, but twice repeating the same statement, saying, I asked your son what happened, and he said privates area. And that's when we said, well,
the stories they don't match up at all. No. And Suter, you're right. It sounds like the kids heard so much of this before you came in, but what the principal said shocked the hell out of me. Tell us what the principal said while being recorded. And I'm so glad you recorded it. Parents, yes, always record, always. Here's the article.
19 minutes and 50 seconds into the conversation, after he made that statement twice about my son responding with privates area and us going over, if you would have had him show you, you would have seen this, him rub his stomach. And I said, he's got ADHD. You know, he's, I guess, pre-wired, if you want to call it that, to have gaps or holes in his memory when retelling stories or, you know, retelling
especially
events or things that happen.
I mean, the kid's been hammered, you know, hammered. Yeah. How stressful must this have been?
And that was one of the reasons that I had him evaluated for ADHD in the first place, is because when he tells stories or tells me something that happened, a lot of times it doesn't make sense. And sometimes he says things that he doesn't mean, the complete opposite, or, you know, backwards to front. But it's at that point when Mr. Bissinger says very clearly, he says, Mr. Pierce, I have been doing this for 20 years, and I know exactly how to lead a student into getting me a response that I want to hear when questioning them. But I promise I did not do that with your son. That tells me, number one, right there, he just admitted to knowing how to basically coerce students into giving him information. Number two, that he's done it. And number three, seems very clear that that's exactly what he did with the other student and tried to do with my son. But my son maintained his own story, and call it a Freudian slip or whatever you want to call it. The principal even used Hudson's or my son's own words, privates area, but completely dismissed that part and lied and said that they had matching stories when in fact they did not.
Right. As he said over and over again. So here we are today. I'll just tell everyone what happened. Yeah, I'm working on this story today. We got part one published, and I'm literally, I don't even know if I had published it. I may have. And you called me and you're like, you're never going to believe this. You got a call from Huntersville police, and take it from there.
Yeah, I got a call from Huntersville police, and they said that a police report was filed against my son for showing or making a pornographic video and showing it to students. And like I said earlier, they were surprised.
So it was made yesterday. So I don't mean to interrupt you, but I want to catch everybody up, make sure you're with us.
No, you're fine.
So your son had been cleared of these charges 4 days ago. Number one. Number two, the actual incident happened 17 days ago. So yeah. What's changed? What's changed is You went in and said, this is bull and I'm not going to put up with it. And insisted, as every parent should, that you advocate for your son and his civil rights because you saw them being trampled. And that
Yes.
I think you mentioned you were going to get a lawyer and something of that nature.
Yeah, I had sent Mr. Bissinger an email and I said, listen, um, I want all of this. I want both of these dropped. I said, you're on recording using my son's own words when you recap your questioning of them, not once, but twice. You're on recording admitting to basically coercing, knowing how to coerce information out of them that you want to hear, but you promise you didn't do that with my son. Um, the stories don't match, and your whole entire allegation are based on the fact that you took the other students' word for it because their stories matched. So dismiss what
When
my
in
son
fact,
said.
yeah.
And I said, if these aren't dropped, I'm gonna file a lawsuit. I said, I've already got legal consultation. I'm gonna file a lawsuit for a number of different things, and also for an event that happened the day before the first accusation that they made against him, where he was pushed down from behind, face first into the dirt at recess, where the other student who did it was sent to the principal. They talked to my son, and he informed them he pushed me down 4 times from behind, and my back is really hurting. And at no point was I ever informed that my son was attacked or bullied or whatever you want to call it, assaulted on the playground at recess, and certainly wasn't informed that he was injured.
Let's call it an assault. Let's use the same nomenclature, Greg. It was an assault, a violent assault.
Well, that's what I called it in the email. And I said, basically, at that point, I said, I'm done. I'm not playing games. You can either drop these ridiculous allegations against my son, as you know they're not true, and you're clearly busted on recording, lying, and talking about coercing information out of students. And I want these dropped, or I'm going to file a lawsuit to have it done that way. And everything changed since then. Like you said, the next thing you know, I get a call from the Huntersville Police Department. A report was made yesterday at 9:06 a.m. by Sharon Taguchi that my son was made a pornographic video and showed it to students. Another call at that same time was placed to DSS.
Filing a false police report.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, not based on what I'm saying or you're saying, based on the documents we saw and where we both read that it's been recorded by the actual principal that did not happen. This is a false police report.
Correct. And I was specifically told that, none of this would even be in any of the paperwork. That it was simply, and he explained this. He explained the final outcome statement on recording as well. That there's nothing to do with sexual harassment, nothing to do with pornographic material. The only thing that's being reported and that will be filed, and this is recorded, and he said, is this document, and goes over it in detail and talks about what was taken out and what's in there. And it was simply violations of student code of conduct for misuse of technology. Yet this past Sunday, I emailed him, and that's when I told him I wanted all this stuff dropped because they were complete lies, and total fabrication of the truth. He either dismissed my son's words or completely twisted them somehow. Either way, they were made up. That's a given. And then he ends up calling the police and making a police report. And he even told the student's parents, that the other student that was involved, their parents, that it was going to stop after the in-school suspension. That's all that was going to happen to him. There would be no further legal action, no further disciplinary action.
If you're counting in the audience, suspended twice. Okay.
All right. So that was on, and he told them. And I found out that from the police officer today that called. She said that they were actually very upset because he lied to them and said that nothing else would happen. And she was confused. The police officer is confused. I don't know what I'm looking at here because the video doesn't line up with anything that has to do with child pornography. Um, this this call that was placed to DSS that DSS wanted nothing to do with about the second incident.
So that's a second law enforcement division, right? That's taking your child away division. They were also called. Go ahead.
They also placed a call to DSS about the second incident where he supposedly touched somebody's privates, which I know that he did not. And DSS passed it on to the police department, and the police officer again was confused. She said, I don't know what's going on here. Why is there such a big lapse in time for when this incident occurred and when it was reported to me? And I said, I'll tell you exactly why. Because Mr. Bissinger got an email from me saying that I was going to file a lawsuit unless he had all these bogus allegations against my son dropped. And that's what changed. And she kind of said, oh, well, that makes sense. And I talked to her for probably 30 minutes and told her from the beginning of the first incident to the end of the second what happened. And she said, well, it definitely sounds like they're retaliating against your son. Please send me all the documentation and your account of what happened. And I'll be looking to close this out because none of this makes sense. I want to have it on record, all your stuff, just in case, but none of this makes sense. They're supposed to, if they're going to report this, you would think it'd be on the first or second day of the incident. The first incident was April 22nd, I think, is when the first incident was. Right. And now after all this, and even she asked also to see or to hear the audio recording, so I sent her that as well. And she listened to that, and it became quite evident to her that that's exactly what they're doing. They were covering their own ass for screwing up on the first incident.
And beyond.
Putting allegations against him that don't fit, but now we're going to get him on something that we think will stick. But guess what? You got recorded, you got caught lying, and now you got caught lying about multiple things. Not just to me, but to other people's parents too. And they could see through it, thankfully. She was very, very professional, very polite, and seemed to be very knowledgeable and sensitive towards these situations, and said that there were actual real cases of this stuff going on that she needed to focus on, and that this wasn't one of them.
But it's a colossal waste of time. And so, Joe, you're bringing up that in Johnston County, as a general rule, not to report assaults on children to law enforcement. Well, this is crazy. I talked to a Charlotte Mecklenburg school board member today that says it is our protocol to anytime a complaint about sexual assault is made to call the police. So I happen to know that that is not true. Maybe it should be a policy, but it is absolutely not true. This is arbitrarily kind of put up again over and over. Now, I know that there's a mandate from the State Board of Education, and it says that schools will see to it equal outcomes in discipline, meaning that an equal number of Black students and white students will have the cops called on them. That's what it says. An equal number of Black and white students will have suspensions. So it just seems to me that you just put 2 credits, okay, in the jukebox, if you will, for a white student, all right, for both reporting 2 suspensions and calling the police, because they have to have equal outcomes. I'm calling that like I see it, because that's how I see it. We just talked to a teacher today. You and I were on the phone with a teacher that said, yeah, I mean, you know, she's reported students that have been grabbing boys' butts all year long. Finally reported it. That wasn't an offense. And beyond that, and it happened to be a different skin color. I hope that's not what we're looking at. But I got to tell you, I'm very skeptical of it. We have a superintendent, Catherine Truitt, who actually said that equity in education, racial equity, should be applied to everything in education. That would include discipline. So if we're looking at an incident of racial equity, we have even bigger problems than what we've talked about tonight. So for tonight, we have your son was denied his constitutional right to have special modifications to the classroom. Didn't have that. Due process, didn't have that. You were not called. You were not there. It's sort of like having your Miranda and having the option to have a lawyer with the accused, with an adult. You, you ought to have your parent there. And according to Title IX training that all teachers get, that's exactly what your son was entitled to, yet he did not get that. And above all, let's get to the outrageousness here. It is total bull, sorry, that a false police report and retribution on you. I mean, there are laws about, as I recall reading in Title IX, where you cannot retaliate. I don't think that that's what they meant by the law, because you're being retaliated against, and you're the actual victim. Your son is the actual victim. You have done every single thing right, and I'm so glad that you came on tonight, because from beginning to end, every single thing that you have done has been right, and I just want to outline that. What happened was you immediately became engaged in this issue and advocated for your son's rights from the beginning. You were not going to accept that the piece of paper that you were given was irrelevant. You didn't have to read. That wasn't good enough for you. And you pushed back every step of the way. You met in the course of this a parent by the name of Ashley, who is one of our members, one of our somebody we work with. She told you about us. Then we kind of got hooked up and advocated together, which at Education First Alliance is what we live for, is helping parents know how to do the right thing and to fight. You went in there, you recorded this conversation, which is always what I want you guys to do. And you're not being intimidated. I mean, and even coming here tonight, which is something that it's difficult to do. And you told me that you wanted to do this to make sure that this did not happen to anyone else again. So the way that you've gone over and above, but the way you have responded from beginning to end, you are an exemplar. You've saved every document. You've recorded the conversation. You've saved all the emails. I mean, we owe you a debt of gratitude for coming on here tonight and being willing to share your story with everybody.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last part of what you said.
Well, we owe you a debt of gratitude for being willing to come in here tonight and to talk to parents all across really the country. I mean, we're, accessed all over. But I thank you for coming in here and sharing this story with us.
Well, no problem at all. In fact, I think it was the evening that I was putting all this into this information to you, as I was sitting here kind of looking at what I was writing and typing out and thinking it through my head. I was thinking, I'm not just fighting for my son to stay out of trouble. I'm fighting for my son's rights, but it's not just my son. I'm fighting for a greater cause here. And it's for all the kids that this has already happened to and their families that have had to experience it, the ones that are going through it right now. And hopefully this will help bring some attention to this, and that other parents and children won't have to go through this. Because it's surreal, it's terrifying. And these are the people that your kids are with for the better portion of the day, that are supposed to be providing them an education. And, my ex-wife said to me today, she said, I don't trust them after they looked us in the eye so many times and told us one thing and did the complete opposite on so many different things, so many different levels. And I really feel for his safety being around that principal and some of the other staff there at the front office. And
what did you do in another applause for you? Tell us what you did.
I went there and I pulled him out of school and said, he's not coming back, because I agree. I mean, that principal has lied about, and the assistant principal have lied about so many things, and like even the police officer said, it's very clear that they're retaliating. And I asked her opinion, what would you do? And she said, I would probably take my son out, or my child out. And that's what I felt I had to do, because I don't want them around somebody that I can't trust, somebody that has blatantly lied. Um, they're obviously going to be on the lookout for anything else that they can do. Um,
Yeah.
they can take whatever they want to take, say whatever they want to say, because they've questioned him without me twice. Um, I've got him on recording admitting to lying about all of it.
Right.
And, I'm even afraid, is it going to come down to something like he's going to come home battered and bruised and say, sorry, your son fell down the stairs, had an accident. There's just no trust there anymore. You get caught on recording lying about that much, and it's really disturbing. I'm not going to let my child around that kind of environment anymore. Um, it's sad. It's really sad, to really think about what's going on in your child's head. What are going to be the long-term effects of this after he's hearing all this terminology and going through changing schools and having to be sent home and being literally interrogated by people that are trying to put words in his mouth while he's sitting there telling him, I didn't say that. I didn't say that. No, I said this. And to do so without his parents standing by. And when I went in for that second incident, it was heartbreaking because he started getting teary-eyed several different times because he didn't know what was going on. He was rubbing a kid's belly along with the other kid, and they thought it was funny. And next thing you know, his parents are there, and they're saying he's got to go home. So, I mean,
and change classrooms, and this is traumatizing, and we're being told all this bull about this social emotional learning that we really care about your children. We don't want them, stressed and traumatized and all this stuff. And we're going to do all of this. I think they call it trauma informed care and all of the stuff. That is a lie to enable this radical curriculum to come in. We've already talked about that. One other thing I want to share with you. I want to show our audience this and just kind of get you to recap this, and let's put things in perspective here. Well, hold on. I can't show that one. I keep having the one on here, Greg, that has the actual pornography. I can't show you that one though. And they're not taking care of that. I know, it's disgusting, and it's hard to even believe that we're here. But look, here's what they're doing. They're actually showing kids this garbage, this genderbread person, and teaching them social emotional learning in kindergarten. So let me get this straight. They're teaching children, boys are attracted to boys, girls are attracted to girls, talking about sexuality in kindergarten. And let me show another one. This was actually in Charlotte. This one was taught in Charlotte, the gender freaking unicorn, where you're saying physically, this is what they're teaching children. Physically attracted to men, women, other, talking about gender, showing genitals. How the hell are you justified, Charlotte Mecklenburg school system, in teaching this crap and then running this family through the ringer for allegations that turns out isn't true? This is bizarre to me.
Yeah, I don't understand. I don't understand where this has any place in the schools to begin with. You go to history class, you go to language, math. I don't understand why we're teaching gender and sexuality, at least at such a young age. It makes no sense to me. And then to show it graphically like that. And then
let's say there are children who do things. Where are they getting this idea? It ain't at home. It's at school.
I could argue that yes, it's a lot of it if it's coming from the school. Yeah. And if anybody's creating trauma, it's them. They're not there, in my opinion, after, through the whole first incident, I've got to say, I was very polite and I was compliant with everything because I was acknowledging the fact that what my son did was inappropriate. And I thought this was going to be an opportunity to teach him a lesson, explain to him, what's right and wrong. And it didn't turn out to be that. It turned out to be something a lot worse. And it's all about, it's whatever fits their agenda. There's politics involved.
Race involved.
The least thing,
involved.
the last thing, the last thing they're concerned about is my son. That's the last thing they're concerned about.
Well, look, Greg, we're figuring it out. Schools are about the radicals that run them instead of about the children who need them. And that's why it's important that we continue this fight. Unfortunately, you're actually a part of a fight in the movement you didn't think you would ever have to probably be in, but it is what it is. I guess welcome to the fight.
Oh, I'm in the fight to stay. I'm not going anywhere, and I hope they know that, because if anybody knows me, they know that I will always stand up for my kids and defend them no matter what. And like I said, I acknowledge the inappropriateness of it, but the point that they push this, and the assistant principal told me on the phone when I was having a conversation with her about this, she said, "You'd be surprised at how much is going on." She said, "We've got kindergarten kids that they don't know any better. They're on the playground at recess. They have to go to the bathroom. Some of them find a corner and go pee outside, and we're writing them up for sexual harassment."
Are they calling the cops on them? I would like to know that.
Yeah, I would like to know that too. My guess is probably not, but I don't think many people have stood up to the schools. They just kind of take it as it comes. And, like I said, they tell you, don't even pay attention to this paperwork.
Yeah.
It's just confusing. It'll sound a lot worse than it really is. Well, when you read it, it is a lot worse, and they end up making it a lot worse. So.
Well, they definitely have with you, but they've got the wrong dad this time. And I thank you again for standing up. We're going to be by your side every step of the way. We have already put out an APB everywhere for the meanest and the fiercest child civil rights attorney we can find in Mecklenburg County or elsewhere if we have to go. But it's got to be, we got to take care of this. So thank you again, Greg, for coming on. Thank you, everybody in the audience. And I want you guys in the audience to share this with 10 people, because I'm telling you, the videos are making such an impact. I will go out grocery shopping, whatever, and I always get someone that comes up and says, "Hey, you're the lady in the video. My friend shared that video and I had this problem," and blah, blah, blah. So sharing it with 10 people, it makes a difference. If you're in a Facebook group or wherever, share it. Telegram, especially, wherever it is, share it, because you never know who is going to need this, because God works through people, not through things, not through places, through people, as it has Greg with you and I, and then Ashley, her watching, and it all comes together and our world actually gets smaller and we can do a lot of helping. So thanks again for joining us, Greg. Thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
All right. Absolutely. Hang in there.
All right. Thank you.